Hey, let's can some corn. So let's just start with the corn. This is the brand I prefer to can. Bird's Eye. I've tried other brands and don't like them. I will can fresh, of course. But when it comes to canning frozen corn, this is my favorite brand. Now, I know what you're thinking. Nana, why you canning frozen corn? Why don't you just keep it in the freezer? Well, the reason I can frozen corn is because freezer shelf lives are short. In about 3 months, if I don't eat this in 3 months, it's going to be all crystallized and frozen and freezer burnt, okay? I prefer to can it. I can then take up to 2 to 3 years to eat that corn. Fresh corn is the same way. I could freeze it, but then I've got to hurry up and eat it. Not to mention, if the electricity goes out, you're kind of stuck. If it's winter, you're fine, but if it's summer, you're going to lose your food. Putting it on a shelf where it doesn't have to be refrigerated is a much better way to preserve food, in my opinion. Also, it is not cost effective for me to grow enough corn to feed my family for a year. This is going to take my family about 3 months. So today, I am canning anywhere from 3 to 6 months worth of corn for my family. 10 pounds of corn. I cannot grow that much corn, okay? So that is why I prefer to can frozen. Now, during the summer, when we have the farmer markets and things like that, I will stock up on a lot of fresh foods. But with corn, green beans, I buy frozen most of the time. Let's talk jars. Regular old canning jar. You can get them Dollar General, Walmart. You can order them on Amazon. You can get regular mouth or wide mouth. It really doesn't matter. Now, I can tell you, with wide mouths, things like if you're doing carrot sticks, if you're doing meats, larger items, you're going to want cheese. You're going to want to use a wide mouth. Today for the corn, though, I'm just going to use regular. Now, I'm doing pints, but I'm also doing half pints. This is about the size my family uses during a dinner setting, okay? This is more of a single serving, usually for Papa. So I will can up, I'm doing 3 today because that's all the jars I have available in the half pints. Because I do use them for all kinds of things. So I'm going to be doing 3 today. That way, Papa, it's a fend for yourself night. Papa wants to make himself a hamburger steak, fried taters, and corn. He don't got to open one of my cans. He can open his own. When you buy your jars, you're going to notice that they come with lids and rings. Every jar in the case will have its own lid and ring. You can also buy lids as well, because I have used these more than once. If they're in good shape still, not bent, no flaws, rubber looks good, I'll wash them up and use them again. Most of the time, though, you don't. So you buy refills. You don't ever have to buy the rings unless it gets ruined. But do buy lids. And what I do is when I go to Walmart, go to the store, I just grab a box. That way I stock up. Know that during the pandemic, lids were hard to get. You couldn't get them at all. Not even at the Amish store. That's where I got these. So now that they're back, no problem. They're like $1.50, $2 tops. Grab a box, throw them in the cart, stock up on them. I've got a whole stack of them over there. Another tool. If you do not have this, you need to go get it before you start this process. Do not do this process without this tool. This is a jar lifter. This is where you hold your hand, because I see often on the internet people holding it like this. No, you hold it like this, okay? And you put it here and you lift your jar. This helps you put your jar into the hot canner, helps you take the hot jar out of the hot canner without hurting yourself. You cannot do this job without this tool. They're not expensive. You go get one before you do it. Another tool you need. You may already have this. Now, there's a couple of ways to sanitize your jars. Some people boil them for 15 minutes, and that's a rolling boil. A rolling boil is a boil that you cannot stir down. So sometimes when things are boiling and you stir it, they quit boiling for a couple of seconds. That's not a rolling boil. A rolling boil is when it's boiling, you stir it, and it just continues boiling. It doesn't stop. You can put your jars in a pot of rolling, boiling water for 15 minutes. I, however, use my oven. I set my oven at 250 and put my jars in for 15 minutes. Don't start the 15 minutes till you're up to temp for 250. This is how I get them out of the oven. So it's and you know what? You kind of need this even if you're doing the boiling water method as well, okay? So you're gonna need something to handle those hot jars. Now, as I empty a jar, I wash it just like I wash any of my dishes, and I put it away because I know I'm going to reuse it. And then, like today, when I'm ready to use it, put it in my dishwasher on a sanitary cycle. So a very short cycle, no soap, dusty from being stored over on the shelf. It's just another layer of sanitation aside from being in the oven at 250. Another tool you're going to want, not necessarily with corn though, is a butter knife. They make fancy tools, but you really just need a butter knife. If I'm canning potatoes, which are big chunks, or squash, which is big chunks, or meat, you have to watch for air pockets, okay? That develop inside those, inside there. You use your butter knife to go in there and make sure that there's no voids and air pockets. The air pockets, if they're left alone, won't process correctly, and that's going to lead to bacteria forming, and you're going to lose your whole jar, because eventually after a few weeks it's going to pop and it's going to ruin, and it's going to stink. Trust me, I know it don't smell good. So get yourself a butter knife. All right, let's talk about canning. This is my trusty 23 quart Presto. I love her. I need another one, to be honest. And I know you're scared to death to use a pressure canner because you've grown up watching the videos or seeing the pictures of the exploded pressure canner and the lid stuck up in the ceiling, people getting injured, and all of that. No, you don't need to worry about that anymore. If you're using a vintage old canner, beware, do your research. But if you buy a canner brand new nowadays, they have safety features that are going to keep that from happening. Let me show them to you. Here's the lid to my canner. The first safety feature that I want to show you is that. Okay? Now, as pressure builds in my canner, it's going to cause this to pop up, okay? When that's up, I can't remove the lid. So that prevents me from getting impatient and trying to take the lid off sooner than it's safe to. The other one you have is this little doodad right here. Okay? Kind of a plasticky, rubbery stopper. Now, what that is made to do is at a certain pressure, at an unsafe pressure, that's gonna pop off and let all the pressure out of the canner. So before it gets to that unsafe pressure, unsafe PSI, that's gonna pop off and everything's gonna go down, okay? It's hard to make one of these explode nowadays. There's just too many safety features. This lid goes on a particular way, only goes on one way, and then turns and is locked, okay? So it's locked even without this. But once that's popped up, I can't even turn it to get it off. You're pretty safe. Now you'll notice the pressure gauge, and you'll notice this as well. What this is, it's a heavy weight. Now some canners use weights to dictate the pressure within the canner. So you'll get a 10-pound weight or a 15-pound weight. My canner's not like that. What this is going to do is stop that vent up so that the canner starts building pressure. Now, where I live, you use 11 pounds PSI to process food. If you live in the mountains or you live like down in Louisiana, you're going to need to research which PSI you need to use for your area because it's going to matter depending on the elevation you live in. I use 11 to 13. I've gone up to 15 before, but it's no big deal. Also, another tip I want to give you is when I first got my canner, I canned up like 4 or 5 jars of water because I just wanted to go through a cycle, not with food. I wanted to bring it up to pressure, keep it at pressure 10, 15 minutes, take it down. Just as a trial run, okay? Pay attention to where your stove's at, the temperature, the dial on your stove to keep that pressure, okay? It's shockingly low. I keep my stove like on a 2 to keep it between 10 and 13 pounds. So it's shockingly low. I don't have to sit on top of my canner, but I do monitor my canner. I've done it so often, I actually could step away quite a bit because I know exactly where to keep my stove, to keep my canner at the pressure I want. But I do check it and I make sure that things aren't getting out of hand, that everything's fine. Number one, you want to make sure that you haven't sprung a leak and the pressure is now going out of your canner because you have to start your processing time when pressure. I can't start timing till my canner gets to pressure. You lose that pressure, you gotta start all over. And let me tell you, that sucks. Another thing you want to get is run to the bathroom and grab a bath towel. All right, you're gonna clean your table off and you're gonna lay a towel across it because when you take those cans out of this canner, they're gonna be wet, they're gonna be hot, and then they're gonna need to sit and listen to the ringing of the pings, as I say. So you need to go get a bath towel so you can lay it out. Another thing is a big pot, okay? I'm going to use this one today. Different ways you can process. You can hot pack, you can cold pack, you can raw. All right, what's the differences? Raw packing, which you can do either hot or cold, is when you put raw food in a jar without liquid, okay? Raw food in a jar. Well, you can have liquid. You can either dry or wet. And you can start with a cold jar or a hot jar. If you're using a cold jar, you put it in a cold canner. If you're using a hot jar, you put it in a hot canner. Okay. So cold packing is cold food, cold jar, cold canner. Everything gets brought up to temp all together. Hot packing, which is what I'm going to do here today, is hot food, hot jar, hot canner. The faster process. Okay. I ain't got time. So I'm going to be putting that corn in this pot and getting it hot. Now, I'm not going to bring it to a boil. I'm not going to boil my corn. But it's going to get hot and good and hot. And then I'll pack it into the jar. I will add hot water, put the lid on, and then put it in a hot canner. I'm also going to put about 8 cups or so of water in my canner and get it heating. Look at the instructions of your canner. It will tell you the minimum amount of water that needs to be in your canner because it does have a minimum amount. And I think that's it. I can't remember anything else, so let's get the show on the road. All right, we are getting things heated up. I got the corn going and got my canner going too, so. All right, everything is hot enough. Let's get this shit in the jars. We'll start with 9. So another tool that you're probably going to want to go get when you go get the jar lifter that I told you to go get is this. This is a funnel that goes down into your jar and really keeps things nice and clean. You're going to want one. Now I'm going to give these about a 1-inch headspace. On your jar, you have the shoulders. And this goes up to the mouth. Right here is 1 inch. Right here is a 1/2 inch. And of course, that's 0 headspace. Go by the recipe. Some things are 1 inch, some things are a 1/2 inch. If you have too much liquid in your jar, it'll cause siphoning. All your liquid will get sucked out during the process. It'll be canned, and I've even had them stay sealed, but it, definitely lessens the quality of your food. So we're going to give this an inch. So we're just going to go right here. All right, we got all the jars full. Now we want to wipe the rims and make sure the rims are nice and clean. I use white vinegar. Now this process is especially important if you're canning anything oily or greasy, because that will prevent your lid to seal to your jar. Now for the lids. Oh man. Damaged one. That. Can't use that. Make sure you look at each one of them. Now the rings. Somebody might think I have a problem. All right. Don't put these rings on too tight. Finger tight. Let me tell you about finger tight. Now, these are really hot. Done. You see what I'm saying? I'm not wrenching them. They're shut, but not shut. Does that make sense? So finger, I have to move them to open them. They're not loose, but they're not tight. You put them on too tight, it'll cause your lids to buckle and they'll fail to seal. I think that one's it's not going on. So I'm going to throw that in the trash. They don't last forever, but they do last quite a long time. Now we're going to stick these into the canner. All right, let's do 9 more. All right, let's keep loading them in. Okay, so we have to start another level. Let me catch you up. The entirety of the bottom of my pot is full of jars, and it held 10 pints on the first level. Excuse me. I now get this little divider piece and I will lay it right down on top of those jars and we could fit another 10. Okay, so here's the drill. We're gonna get this other pot off the stove. Gonna make sure my pot's lined up nice and center on that burner. Now I'm gonna put this sucker up on high. And I'm gonna put my lid on. Notice that I did not put that weight on there. No. Let's mark the time as well. It is 3:05 p.m. Central Standard Time. Okay? I'll put it right here in the video. Lid's on, tight, burners on high. Now we sit and wait for her to get hot. Okay, it's now 3:25 and I came to check the canner. And here's what I'm looking for. And I have to put my dark sleeve behind it. As soon as steam starts escaping from that little vent, I'll want to let it do that for about 10 minutes before I put the weight on it. So we're already at 20 minutes and we're still not processing. Okay, we are back 20 minutes later and I don't know if you can tell, but we are venting. So I'm going to get me a hot pad here. Hang on. All right, and we're going to pop that on there. You'll notice that's starting to vent too. Now that we clogged this pressure, oops, sorry, let me get you out of the steam. Oh, look, already popped up. Now we're going to watch this. Okay, we're going to keep an eye on this. And as soon as it gets to pressure, we'll turn the stove down to 2. So let's check our time. 10 till 4. We are at 10 till 4 and we're working on getting pressure. So not quite an hour later, we've finally been able to start gaining pressure. All right, we are nearly exactly 1 hour later from start. And we are at 10 pounds. Actually, we've started to go past 10 pounds. Now, I have already put my burner on 2, okay? Because that's going to continue reaching pressure for a few minutes. I'll keep an eye on it. If I need to put that up on 3, I can. But I'm not going to start my timer until it's on 11. There's one more. See the next dot? When it gets to that next dot, I'll start my timer. Something I want to add, though. Here's 4 jars that I didn't use. Always do some extra. There's Pawpaw's supper. Always do some extra, just in case you never know if a jar's going to break or maybe you're going to find a chip, something. But these just go back on the shelf. No big deal. All right, we are at 11 pounds. I've set the timer for 1 hour and 25 minutes. The processing time for pints corn is 85 minutes, which is 1 hour and 25. And we're just going to kind of monitor this. It's already past 11, but it's not going to go much further. So we are officially at 4:12 with processing time having started. I mean, this takes a minute. Yeah, when you can, especially a big amount like I'm doing today, you plan a day. They call it canning day, okay? You don't plan nothing else. You can that day. Unless you're just doing 4 quarts in your little electric pressure canner, which will be another video. It's a day. So, anyway, we'll check back in when it's time to take it off the heat. All right, it is 6:35, a little after 6:35. And our time is up, so I've turned the timer off. We're just going to let that sit until this pops down. When that pops down, we'll open it up and take the jars off. Now, do not remove that until this is all the way down and reading no pressure. Then you can take that off. Do not take it off before that. Okay? If the pressure gets let out too fast, it's going to cause siphoning. All right, let's check back in later. Okay, we're at 6:35, just a little after actually, and I've cleaned up from dinner. And I'm ready to remove that. Always make sure you're protected because that steam is hot. Be mindful of what you're doing. Oh, well, it's pretty much done anyway. All right, we're going to open it up and we're going to move the jars from here to here. All right, here we are. I'm sorry the light sucks so badly, but let me see if I can get you close enough. See that bubbling? That's good. It's boiling inside the jar. That's what you're looking for. So now some of them have already popped, but not all of them have popped, and we ended up with 16 pints of corn. So, one last thing before this entire process is completely done. You're going to want to remove all the rings from your jars. You don't want to store your jars with your rings on them because if for some reason this seal fails later, you're not going to know it. And this food's going to, next thing you're going to have a huge issue. Trust me, it's nasty. With this being off, you're going to notice that popped off. I keep my extra downstairs in the cellar. So regularly I will go by and I will check my lids because, fact of the matter is unforeseen circumstances, not your fault. Lids may pop at a later date. Now, I had a 100% seal rate, but know that it's not necessarily going to be that way, okay, every time. And it's okay. It's not necessarily anything you did. There could be minor imperfections in the lid that you couldn't tell were there. Same as the jar. Maybe you missed a chip. Who knows? But when that happens, put the lid back on. Pop it in the freezer and make that the first one you eat. So another thing that I do is I have bleach water and I spray the whole jar down and I wipe it. Now the reason I do this is because downstairs it gets a bit humid, okay? And I got some on the camera. Hang on. This helps stave away any mold that might want to gather around this neck of this jar. It doesn't always happen. With corn, it's probably not going to happen. But you know what? Some of these jars I have hard water, okay? So it also kind of helps clean that up as well. Makes it just a little bit, is it necessary? No, it doesn't affect the food at all. But it looks nicer on the shelf. Beautiful can of corn. Also, let's not forget to label, okay? Now, obviously, I know it's corn, so I'm probably not going to write corn, but I am going to write the date. 3/23. Now, that's not because I'm worried about having it too long and not using it. We're going to go through this corn. But when I get my last jar, I'll know how long that corn lasted. And I'll know and I always usually do a 10-pound batch, so I know it. So I'll be like, okay, that 10-pound batch lasted me this long. Helps me figure out how much I need to do the next time. Anyway, there you are. Canning corn, no salt, no additives whatsoever. It tastes fresh off the cob. I'm not even lying about that. It's just a healthier alternative for your family. So happy canning.